Come into this holy space, bringing with you whatever joy, pain, or sorrow you carry, knowing that you will be held in love. Come into this holy space with open mind and open heart, being willing to be shaped by what you encounter here, because you will be held in love. Come into this holy space, willing to hold others in love, because the love you bring is part of the love that holds us all. Come, let us worship together.
If you will please read with me the words on your screen for this morning's chalice lighting. We light this chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, as a signal that we are creating a sacred time to be together as a loving religious community, though each in their own place, in order to celebrate our common humanity. Good morning. My name is Rowan, and I am your worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. Whether you have been with this church a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whatever your journey has been, we welcome you. Newcomers and guests are always welcome to participate in any of our church activities. If you'd like more information about our church or Unitarian Universalism, please talk to our minister, Reverend Jane Thixton. You can find her contact information on our website. Be sure to join us for coffee hour following the service. The Zoom link will be posted in the YouTube chat at the end of the service, and we will be breaking into small groups for better conversation. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. It is good to be together, even virtually. The opening hymn will be number 34 in your gray hymnal, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift
Last Stop on Market Street. Words by Matt De La Pena. Pictures by Christian Robinson. CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals, watched rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" "Boy, what do we need a car for? We got a bus that breathes fire, and old Mr. Dennis, who always has a trick for you." The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged, and the doors swung open. "What's that I see?" Mr. Dennis asked. He pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear and placed it in his palm. Nana laughed her deep laugh and pushed CJ along. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tuning a guitar. An old woman with curlers had butterflies in a jar. Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon. She made sure CJ did the same. The bus lurched forward and stopped, lurched forward and stopped. Nana hummed as she knit. "How come we gotta always go here after church?" CJ said. "Miguel and Colby never have to go nowhere." "I feel sorry for those boys," she told him. "They'll never get a chance to meet Bobo or the Sunglass Man. And I hear Trixie got herself a brand new hat." CJ stared out the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched cars zip by on either side, watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. CJ gave up his seat. "How come that man can't see?" "Boy, what do you know about seeing?" Nana told him. "Some people watch the world with their ears." "Well, that's a fact. Their noses, too," the man said, sniffing at the air. "That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am." Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed her deep laugh. Two older boys got on next. CJ watched as they moved on by and stood in back. "I sure wish I had one of those," he said. Nana set down her knitting. "What for? You got the real-life thing sitting across from you. Why don't you ask that man if he'll play us a song?" CJ didn't have to. The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. "To feel the magic of music," the blind man whispered, "I like to close my eyes." Nana closed hers too. So did CJ and the spotted dog. And in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus, out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves, saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full, and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. The song ended, and CJ opened his eyes. Everyone on the bus clapped, even the boys in the back. Nana glanced at the coin in CJ's palm. CJ dropped it in the man's hat. "Last stop on Market Street," Mr. Dennis called. CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. Crumbling sidewalks and broken down doors, graffiti-tagged windows and boarded-up stores. He reached for his Nana's hand. "How come it's always so dirty over here?" She smiled and pointed to the sky. Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what's beautiful. CJ saw the perfect rainbow arcing over their soup kitchen. He wondered how his Nana always found beautiful where he never even thought to look. He looked all around them again, at the bus rounding the corner out of sight, and the broken street lamps still lit up bright, and the stray cat shadows moving across the wall. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, "I'm glad we came." He thought his Nana might laugh her deep laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, "Me too, CJ. Now come on."
Good morning. I'm Lynn Richards from the Lay Pastoral Care Team. During our service, we create this sacred space for sharing within our community. It is a time to share significant life passages with the congregation so that you can be held in loving care. I'll be reading the joys and sorrows this morning. We will also be placing a stone which represents each joy or sorrow in the sand. The sand represents our congregation, supporting our sorrows and lifting up the joys. Today we have 3 sorrows and a joy. From Carla Baldwin. Tom May has had some health issues this month. He's now in Passivant Hospital for some additional testing. Please keep Tom in your thoughts and prayers. To Tom and Carla we say, we're holding you in our hearts. Next, a sorrow from Lindsay Scott. My daughter, Alexis, is meeting with a neurosurgeon on Monday to discuss treatment of her herniated neck disc that is compressing her spinal cord. I'll be spending a part of my week at her house until she's better. Please keep her in your thoughts. Thank you. To Lindsay and Alexis, we say, we're holding you in our hearts. From Tony Palermo, first a sorrow and then a joy. My Aunt Fran and Uncle Al are feeling their 90 years on the planet. Both have COVID, and for Al, a trip to the hospital. There's still the wonderful people I've known all my life, and I'm hoping for the best. My joy is that I explained to my grandson Aiden the biochemical wonder of proteins, how they're made, and how they make life on Earth work. 15 years ago, we were stacking Fisher-Price blocks together. To Tony we say, we're holding you in our hearts, and we share in your joy. We now place one more stone in the sand for all those joys and sorrows that exist in our hearts, but which remain unspoken today. As always, we especially think of all who are affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. Please read with me the words appearing on the screen, knowing that here includes all those watching. Let us hold in our circle of caring each person here. Let us hold in our hearts those who are unable to be with us today. Let us hold in our memories those who have moved on. Let us find comfort in knowing that we are not alone.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies chase those dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them it won't be long. Though we're so far apart, you are still in my heart as I'm singing this song. And we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Oh, we'll meet again. Don't know where, and I don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Just keep smiling through, just like you always do, till better times chase the blues away. And will you please say hello to all the folks that I know? Tell them I hope it won't be long till we're together again, though we don't know just when. We can all sing along. Ooh, we'll meet again, but I don't know when, but I know we're gonna meet again someday.
As we enter a period of meditation or prayer, if you prefer, let us remember the words of the Universalist minister David Bumbach. May this church be dedicated to the proposition that beneath all our differences and behind all our diversity, there is a unity which makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. Let us pause in silent witness to that unity.
This is an excerpt from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. Though I was initially disappointed at being categorized as an extremist, as I continued to think about the matter, I gradually gained a measure of satisfaction from the label. Was not Jesus an extremist for love? Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Was not Amos an extremist for justice? Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Was not Paul an extremist for the Christian gospel? I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Jesus. Was not Martin Luther an extremist? Here I stand. I cannot do otherwise, so help me God. And John Bunyan, I will stay in jail to the end of my days before I make a butchery of my conscience. And Abraham Lincoln, this nation cannot survive half slave and half free. And Thomas Jefferson, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists will we be? Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accordance with our principles, mission, and vision. We are an independent member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, an association of a little over 1,000 congregations in this country and elsewhere in the world. Our congregation is entirely self-governed and financially supported by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends. To this end, let there be an offering to sustain the work of this beloved community. The morning offering will be taken by either writing a check and sending it to the church, or by going to the uucnh.org website, finding the link in the upper right-hand corner that says Donate, and making a contribution equivalent to what you would be putting into the plate, or more. The February Share the Plate recipient will be New Voice Pittsburgh, whose mission is to build social change movement dedicated to the health and well-being of Black women and girls, their families and communities through their focus on leadership development, human rights, and reproductive justice. To donate, please mail a check to the church office, made payable to UUCNH, by February 28th with Share the Plate, or NVP, in the memo line, or go to the church's website donation page and select Special Offerings. Include the words Share the Plate or NVP when making the donation. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith.
My message this morning is on the theme of beloved community, and it is titled Inescapable Networks of Mutuality, a phrase from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. It is not possible to address the concept of beloved community without strong reference to Dr. King, because he is the one who liberated that concept from the erudite halls of philosophy and schools of theology. King breathed real life into that concept, and through his ministry turned the phrase into a vision of another world that might be possible. Let's look briefly at the origins of the term beloved community. It is a term so familiar to us today that it would be easy to think that it is a natural and obvious concept, but that is not the case. The phrase was conceived in the late 1800s and the first 2 decades of the 20th century by Josiah Royce, a lecturer in philosophy and religion at Harvard University, as part of Royce's formal examination of moral ethics. Royce laid out the basic theoretical concepts of what he considered the essential nature of such a community. Royce did so in a long-ranging and friendly competition with his friend, the psychologist William James, around the time that James wrote his well-known book, Varieties of Religious Experience. The idea of a beloved community remained an active but sequestered topic in academia until the 1950s, when King encountered it as part of his studies for his doctorate at Boston University. I don't know whether Dr. King ever discussed how he encountered Royce's concept, but clearly a seed had been planted. Early in his career as a minister and as president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, King merged ideas from his own Christian faith with the Royce concept of beloved community, and then coupled them both with Mohandas Gandhi's admonition of be the change you wish to see in the world. As he moved toward social action to address the oppression of African Americans, King adopted Gandhi's strategy of nonviolent protest. Gandhi believed that the key to overcoming oppression lies in the conscience of the oppressor. By combining the philosophies I just described, King created his unique perspective of how to address the multifaceted oppression experienced by African Americans. This thumbnail sketch of the origin and development of beloved community demonstrates how King was able to see the potential of Royce's academic work and transform it into a serious instrument for fighting the wrongs heaped on American blacks. King's actions to end the evils of segregation and discrimination were criticized by both whites and blacks, but he was increasingly successful because of the power of the vision he was able to project to both the African American and the white communities. The most fundamental aspects of King's thinking and work were deeply rooted in 2 primary principles: the American dream of equality and justice for all, and the biblical version of the kingdom of God. It was the clarity of King's vision and the persistence with which he presented it that ultimately persuaded both blacks and whites to support his efforts for change. In April of 1963, King and a number of others were arrested and jailed in Birmingham, Alabama, for disobeying an ordinance that required a permit for a public protest demonstration. I see this as a fortuitous event for King, in that his several days in solitary confinement gave him the time and the opportunity to solidify his thoughts on the rightness of his actions. In the absence of writing paper provided by the jail, King wrote the initial draft of his famous letter from Birmingham jail on the margins of a newspaper smuggled into him. That newspaper included a letter by 8 local Christian and Jewish leaders criticizing King as a so-called outside agitator for his provocative and disruptive public protest. And King's letter was to those clergy in response to their criticism. King's letter was long and thoughtful examination of the issues of oppression as he saw them, and a robust defense of the action that he and his followers were taking to throw off the yoke of oppression and discrimination, which he saw as an institutional evil. Despite its length of almost 7,000 words, King's letter is well worth reading even today for the eloquence of his arguments and extraordinary use of language. There are quite a few phrases that ring beautifully to the ear, but his flow of rhetoric is so tightly woven that it is difficult to pull out a paragraph here or there in order to illustrate succinctly the points he is trying to make. However, one particular one is given in the reading that Rowan presented earlier, citing biblical and historical precedents. Dr. King does not refer to the beloved community as such in Letters from Birmingham Jail, but his letter does lay the foundation for the concept. Consider these points in that letter. I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta without being concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. To the extent that King was successful in efforts toward justice, it was not just because of the rightness of his cause, for there were many people from the African American community and from the white community as well who were working to dismantle segregation and racial oppression. There were some in the Black community who advocated violence to combat these evils and were impatient with the slower, more cautious approach that King practiced. But because King understood the accuracy of Gandhi's concept that the key to winning lay in the conscience of white people, he always based his actions through an emphasis on love and justice. Love and justice are critical, fundamental characteristics of the beloved community. By always approaching causes with these values in mind and framing them through his Christian theology, King was able to touch the hearts and minds of white Americans. When television showed policemen using fire hoses against African Americans and loosing police dogs on children and women, white Americans were revulsed, including President Johnson, who had the courage, at the risk of his own political future, to push for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Another reason King was able to achieve what he did was that the concept of the beloved community was so instinctively understood by people of all colors, ethnicities, and religions. Regardless of whether a given religious community used the formal term beloved community, something of that sort has always been an instinctive and inherent quality of religious communities. It is not my intent to make this message today solely about Dr. King's ministry. I've sought only to point out to you that ideas that we take for granted today often have difficult and convoluted genesis, and King's emphasis on achieving the beloved community has transformed this term from an academic idea into a real, everyday concept of how people should relate to one another in religious and spiritual communities. The term beloved community is today in widespread currency in religious communities across all religious denominations and spiritual organizations. It seems to me that this concept is compelling in many regards, but it would behoove us to re-examine it from time to time, if for no other reason than to gauge where we stand with respect to that ideal. The instinct for beloved community is, at heart, an existential need. It was captured 5 centuries ago by the Church of England cleric John Donne when he wrote, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod is washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends, or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind. And therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee." I think it is essential that we understand that the desire for beloved community stems from a fundamental existential impulse and need. It is often difficult for us to articulate this need, although we keep trying. Francis David, the Hungarian Unitarian, addressed this need in part as, "We need not think alike in order to love alike." The Reverend Jesse Cavalier, minister at this church several years ago, recast David's dictum as, "We agree not that we must think alike, but that we shall endeavor to walk together." I believe that there is an instinctive sense that beloved community implies that everything is always smooth and harmonious in a religious community, and that without uninterrupted harmony, you cannot honestly call yourself a beloved community. It is essential that we quickly lay that misunderstanding to rest. Religious communities may indeed, and probably do, often have moments of tranquility, but they are just as often subject to tension and disagreement. Such an admission simply means that we are human. And the challenge is particularly true in Unitarian Universalist congregations due to the fact that we are largely gatherings of come-outers, people whose earlier religious experience were in some other faith, but which we have abandoned because, for a variety of reasons, that faith no longer serves our needs. Often those earlier religious experiences have caused long-lasting pain from dogma that is harmful to the human spirit. We bring that harmful baggage into our Unitarian Universalist sanctums, and sometimes, perhaps unconsciously, act out the hurt in ways that can be unhelpful and unhealthy in our new spiritual home. As long as we have not adequately come to terms with our own personal issues, we readily contribute to the tension and disharmony in our congregations. It takes real courage to accept the possibility of being held in love in a beloved community. It seems to me that the UUCNH mission statement does not declare us to be a beloved community. What it does do is declare that the goal of beloved community is possible, what we strive for, by building a loving religious community that nourishes the spirit, celebrates life, and cherishes the connectedness of all things. We will transform ourselves and our world. In one sense, our mission statement defines that which is necessary but insufficient to achieve beloved community. It leaves as a leap of faith the idea that it is in the striving to transform ourselves that what we do will end up acting to change the world. Though some among us don't like to use the word faith, our mission statement requires us to have faith if we believe in what that statement implies. Our mission statement refers to love obliquely in the form of a loving religious community. The 7 UU principles do not refer to love at all as one of our core principles, which I think is unfortunate, although the statement of our sources does. I say this is unfortunate because, to me, love is the most important thing in life beyond life itself. The world of advertising tells us that a message has to be heard 7 times before it sinks in. I have probably given M. Scott Peck's definition of love at least 7 times in prior services, but I will cite it again because it is a critical element in attempting to build beloved community. Peck defined love as not that warm and fuzzy feeling that we often associate with love, but as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love in this sense is the most critical attribute of beloved community. Martha Munson, a previous UUCNH interim minister, confessed, "I don't have to like everyone in this congregation, but I sure as heck have to love them." So it is in the beloved community. Each of us must love every other person in the sense that Peck defined love. Not like, love. Let's face it, some of us are, prickly, kind of hard to like sometimes. But we each need to know that we are loved and that we, in turn, are willing to hold others in love. As I said in the call to worship, come into this holy space willing to hold others in love, because the love you bring is part of the love that holds us all. This beloved community of ours is not static. It keeps changing over time as members come and go, and as all of us continue to grow and change in our lives. A vital aspect of beloved community is that of the ability to adapt to the changes in membership and changes in our minds and hearts. As a covenantal community, one key attribute is our ability to weather our tensions and disagreements while remaining in covenant with one another. This is not easy. In fact, it is often enormously challenging. It requires that sometimes in our disagreements, we consider the possibility that we might be wrong. I think that perhaps the most intimate description of the beloved community that I'm aware of is expressed obliquely by Lee Johnson in the first stanza of one of her poems. Lee was one of the founding members of this church, and in fact, the organizing meeting that launched this church was held in her home in 1958. Here are Lee's words. "So many lies bound up in mine, small wonder that I feel upon each line the tug of life and death. Small wonder when the breath I now breathe in has been another's breath." Nobody in our denomination came down from a mountaintop with stone tablets inscribed with the magic key to beloved community. That secret lies in our own hearts for us to share with one another with humility, here in our physical and our virtual communities. Our ability to share as we do during this pandemic is enabled to a large degree by the skills and commitment of our tech team, for which I am enormously grateful, as I'm sure all of you are as well. They give their time and talent week after week as their tithe to our beloved community. Each of us, in turn, gives as best we can, always advancing toward that ideal of beloved community. To that understanding, I conclude with the words of the British writer George Meredith. I'm grateful to Craig Thompson for introducing me to this quote some years ago. "Here we stand, you and I and all the millions of men, women, and children on this earth about us, with our infinite capacity for fellowship or fear, for cooperation or mutual destruction. And it has happened to us just now, in all the eons of time, the miracle of miracles, we are alive, we are here. And here we are, creatures of brief fires, burning between two unexplored eternities. And what are we to make of this wonder while it is yet ours? As a religious community, indeed a loving religious community, we understand that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. And that's okay. That is exactly as it should be. Go now in peace and love the hell out of the world. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Land. The words will be on the screen.
where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an everlasting stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come, build the land, my people we seek. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Please join with me and read the words on your screen, our mission statement. By building a loving religious community that nourishes the spirit, celebrates life, and cherishes the connectedness of all things, we will transform ourselves and our world.